All right, let's take a look at Luke chapter 4, verses 14 and 15. Let's read the passage first. It says, "And Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit to Galilee, and a report about him went out through all the surrounding country. And he taught in their synagogues, being glorified by all." And one of the questions that came out of my meditation on these two verses was just about this report. I was thinking about the fact that in the Gospel of Luke, we haven't seen Jesus actually performing miracles or teaching or really doing any public ministry to this point. We've seen him in the wilderness being tempted by Satan. In chapter 3, we saw his genealogy and we saw him being baptized, which is the most public thing so far in the Gospel of Luke. But that's it. And so, what's this report all about? What are they reporting? Now, one idea I had that I'm curious if I can find more information about through our cross-references and footnotes is, should we assume that John the Baptist's reputation and his teaching ministry and then his identification and testimony about Jesus was significant enough to really get Jesus into the synagogues as a teacher, as this report went around about him? Or is this just Jesus starting small, so to speak, and his teaching blowing people's minds such that he's quickly invited elsewhere? Seems to be one of two of those options. And of course, I had other questions and observations I made about these couple of verses. But before we get there, let me mention a cross-reference. So that would be the next step. We're going to look at our cross-references. And I was looking at the parallel passage in Matthew, and here we can see that Jesus is going into Galilee after John has been arrested. And that's interesting just because Luke, while he tells us about John's arrest in chapter 3, he doesn't tell us about when it happened. He mentions John teaching, John baptizes Jesus, and in between that, it says that he's preaching good news to the people, but Herod doesn't like him and he gets thrown in prison, but doesn't tell us when that happens. Now we know that that's really happening shortly after Jesus' baptism and after he's been tempted by Satan. And that's connected to Jesus going into Galilee. So that's helpful just to understand how these things are fitting together. But of course, we want to keep an eye on particularly how Luke is telling the story. All right, let's now compare different translations. I would have first clicked on a footnote within the ESV here if we had one, but you can see there are no yellow dots in verses 14 and 15. So we'll compare our versions, and as we do so, click on footnotes there. And so point out the differences between the translations that I noticed. One is, in the ESV, it says that this report about Jesus went out through all the surrounding country, whereas in the net, it says throughout the surrounding countryside. And I thought that was interesting. We have surrounding region in the NASB, region roundabout, and countryside. So they all seem pretty similar in terms of the other four versions we're looking at here. Whereas the ESV had given me a different impression. When I read all of the surrounding country, I'm thinking all of the nation, all of Israel, say. And I don't think that's what's intended. It comes out clearly when I look at the other translations, and it's actually explained somewhat in this footnote in the Net Bible. It says the literal Greek is all the surrounding regions. So as I come back to the ESV, I'm wondering to myself, why did they say country? And I reread the verse. A report about him went out through all the surrounding country, and I realized, what they didn't mean to give me the impression of nation. This would be one of those ambiguities in English that is cleared up by comparing different translations. So there's an example of that. But let's keep looking through our footnotes over here. We looked at one. The first footnote here has to do with the conjunction. It says this word, K or Kai, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It doesn't really matter. It's been translated as then to indicate the implied sequence of events within the narrative. And so I look back and I think, okay, so we have and Jesus returned, then Jesus returned, and NIV doesn't have anything. And I realize I don't think that really matters, that they all give the same impression in terms of the flow of the story. So Annette just wanted me to know why they chose the word then. I'm going to continue on, and something about in the power of the Spirit. And we read, once again, Jesus is directed by the Spirit. Luke makes a point about Jesus' association with the Spirit early in his ministry. So we saw this, we saw this in, I believe, verse 1 of chapter 4. The footnote here about the mention of the Spirit makes clear that the temptation of Jesus was neither the fault of Jesus nor an accident. Here, this particular footnote is pointing out the fact that the Spirit's work in Jesus is evident from early in his ministry. And so you have his baptism with the Spirit coming upon him. You have the Spirit's leading. And then where he's going in the next few verses, and quoting from Isaiah about the Spirit of the Lord being upon him. All right, next footnote is news about him spread. And it says the Greek is went out. So that's what I understood from what they translated to spread. And so we have spread there, spread here, spread there, went out in the King James. I think it's went out in the ESV. So good to know, but I didn't get too much help from that footnote simply because it seemed clear that both meant the same thing in the context. Clicking on verse 15, let's see what else we find. So he began to teach, and we read here that it's and he in a literal sense, but the style between Greek and English is different, and so they translate it without the word and again, if I read it with or without the word and, it doesn't seem to make a difference in the meaning of the flow. So Jesus began to teach. We click on that, and we find that the imperfect verb has been translated ingressively. So for me, I know what an imperfect verb is in Greek. You may not if you don't know Greek, and that's okay. And funny enough, the non-grammar term here, ingressively, is the one that I didn't know what it meant. I had to look it up in Google and discover that it means to be entering. And sure enough, I go back and I see, well, Jesus began to teach, and that's why they're translating it that way, whereas in the ESV, it's just he taught. And so the NASB then puts began in italics, and so I'm understanding from this that there is some ambiguity in the original in terms of whether it should be translated like the NIV, he was teaching in their synagogues, or he began to teach. He began to teach like we find the NET and NASB. All right, continuing on, in their synagogues, I click on that and discovered that, well, let's just read the whole study note. This is interpretation, by the way, as it's indicated by that study note type. And it says, the next incident in Luke 4:16 through 30 is probably to be seen as an example of this ministry of teaching in their synagogues in Galilee. Synagogues were places for Jewish prayer and worship with recognized leadership. Though the origin of the synagogue is not entirely clear, it seems to have risen in the post-exilic community during the intertestamental period. A town could establish a synagogue if there were at least 10 men. In normative Judaism of the New Testament period, the Old Testament scripture was read and discussed in the synagogue by the men who were present. So there's a lot of cultural information, historical information. It is non-authoritative in the sense of, before I taught on this, I'd want to check with another source to make sure that this appears to be accurate, but certainly filling me in on historical and cultural information that I'm likely unaware of. So it can be really helpful in that regard. In terms of this being an example of the ministry of teaching in their synagogues, as I was thinking about that, again, wanting to test what is being presented to me in these more interpretation-styled footnotes, I was thinking about the fact that in one way that can't be true. And the reason is we see in verse 15 that Jesus is being glorified by all. And in the section that follows, 16 through 30, we find that they want to kill Jesus. They are enraged. Where's that wrath? I just saw it. Here it is. When they heard these things, all in the synagogue were filled with wrath, and they go out and they want to kill Jesus. And so that certainly is not consistent with being glorified by all. So I don't think the net's right on that point, in that 16 through 30 is an example of the teaching in the synagogues, at least the teaching in the synagogues as described in verse 15. Here, it must have been describing an earlier segment of that ministry where it's all favorable. And what we find in 16 and following is a turn. All right, we have one last footnote, and was praised by all, and we discover that in the Greek he was being glorified by all. So the participle, however you want to pronounce that, has been translated as a finite verb to the requirement of contemporary English style. This is the only place Luke uses the verb doxazo of Jesus. And so, again, depending on your knowledge or lack thereof of Greek, you may understand some of this, but you see that something has been changed grammatically due to English style. Finite verb, if you've taken our grammar course, you'll know that more of what that means. But basically, instead of an ing word, a participle, we find a finite verb. How did they translate in the net? Was praised. And lastly, before I let you go, let's just stop and think for a second. So what? So we did a little study, we learned a little bit more, things got a little bit clearer, but what's significance for us? And even these two little verses, I think we can find something of great significance. And that would be that teaching, in a general sense, can be glorious. There can be somebody who teaches that is properly drawing out praise from others. And of course, there are none like Jesus. There will be those that oppose him, as we will see in the passage that follows and as we experience in our own lives. But if we would only have eyes to see, there is such glory to sit at the feet of Jesus, to hear him explain and teach and expound upon who God is and what he's doing, and the wonderful plan of grace and mercy upon us, that it leaves us no choice but to respond in worship.
This is unlike any study Bible you have ever seen. It might just plunge you into your own deeper study of Scripture. Go to Biblearc.com, the shape, not the boat, to download the Study Bible app and join the expedition as we explore the breadth and length and depth of Scripture.